Okay, we're about to get started here. We're going to be creating the toolbox that we did in the lecture. So the first thing we're going to want to do to start off is we're going to want to press create because we're going to be creating a new document. So one of the things that's interesting about this is we are creating an assembly. So that means there's going to be multiple parts all put together in order to make our toolbox. However, one thing I do want to show you guys really quickly here is just the thing we're trying to create to help you visualize what we're doing here. We're trying to create this toolbox with an engraved name on it. And it really shouldn't be too bad. First thing we're gonna start off with is the basic wall. This really shouldn't be too bad. There's only like 2 operations that we need to accomplish. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new sketch and I'm gonna select the top plane. I'm then going to go on the cube, click on the top of it so that it orientates the camera towards the top plane. So now I'm going to create a corner rectangle using clicking the rectangle tool. Click it at the origin so that it's centered. Click one more time. Now I'm going to click the dimension tool. And I'm going to set this distance to 12 inches. Zoom out, pan over. Click on this line here. That's going to allow me to adjust the length. I'm going to set this to 5. Then you only have one more thing to do. Just press the extrude button. Now you can see if you move your camera to the side, it'll give you a little preview of what's going on. I'm going to make this 3/4 of an inch. And then all I have to do is just press the check mark, and then we have our solid part. I'm going to go ahead and rename this. You can very easily do that by right-clicking Part Studio 1 and just click Rename. So then I'm going to go ahead and name this Basic Wall. Now the next thing you got to do is I want to create that nameplate that we did. So the way I'm going to go about doing this is instead of creating a whole new part, I'm actually just going to duplicate it over to save ourselves time. In order to do that, it's super simple. Just right click and press duplicate. As you can see here, we have our copy. So I'm going to rename it faceplate again. This is completely visual and isn't completely necessary, but I find it makes things much more organized, especially as you start to assemble things. So I'm going to go ahead over to the top plane just like before. I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to click on the top of our part because you can also define sketches by faces of objects because you can essentially define the face as a plane per se. So then I'm going to now use the text button up here, the text tool. Click again, and now it's going to ask you what do you want to type. I'm going to put insert name. And of course you put your own name here, but now you can see this clearly doesn't fit inside of our box, which isn't too bad. And again, if you want to move it, you just click and drag it around. Isn't too bad. So then now what I want to do is I want to center this on the center of our box here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the top of using the dimension tool, I'm going to click on the top of this little text box, I guess is the best way to describe it. And I'm going to make this 10 inches because I know the box is 12. So now that'll scale it down to a much more reasonable level. Now I want to center this around Now I'm going to want to center this around the center of our box. So the way you're going to do that is first of all by clicking the point tool. I'm essentially giving the program a reference. I'm giving ourselves a reference at which I can make all the relations. You'll see exactly what I'm saying in a moment. So you're going to click the point tool, hover over the center line here, and you'll see this little square that pops up on your screen. Sorry if it's a little hard to see. And you're just going to click on that square, and then now it essentially put a point on the midpoint of our text box here, which is going to make this very easy to then go about centering this. So all you have to do is just click on that dot, hover over this line here, and you'll see this dot will appear. That's the midpoint of the top line. Click on that, you'll see I have both of them highlighted now. All you have to do then is just go to the relations. Yeah, if you have on a laptop, a lot of times it'll be a little drop-down menu, but you'll see it on the top right. I'm going to click on vertical. Now these 2 points have to be vertical to one another. And then a very similar process, I'm going to click on this midpoint, go over to the right here, click on this dot, with them both highlighted. Now I'm going to press horizontal. Now these 2 dots have to be horizontal. And you can see immediately this whole system turned black. That's showing it's fully defined. And therefore it cannot move. See, I can kind of click and drag all I want. It's not going to go anywhere. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press extrude. It automatically selected the text for me, but this is going out. I want it to go in. I want it to be like an engraving. So I'm going to click on remove up here. So now you see it's cutting in, and then I'm going to tell it how far I want it to cut in. I'm going to say 1/4 of an inch. And now you can see we have our engraving. Not too bad. Hopefully everybody's following along here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another part because we only have 2 more to go. The next one I'm creating is the side. All we have to do now is go back to our part, plus on the little plus sign on the bottom left, and we're going to be creating a part studio. Now I'm going to do a very similar process to what we did with everything else. We're going to go to click on the top plane, so now we're aligned with the top. Click sketch, click on the top plane, and now we're sketching. So now the next thing I want you guys to do is I'd like y'all to click on the rectangle tool, click on the origin, bring it over, click one more time. This is going to be the bottom section of our side. Then I'm going to do another thing here, but with the line tool. However, I'm going to click on construction. This construction feature will make it so that it won't be incorporated into our perimeter. And it's just used for relations. You'll see exactly what I'm saying. So now we're going to go over to this bottom line here. And if I move my cursor over, you'll see that box will appear again. So I'm centering this line on the midpoint of this line here. So now the start of this line is centered around the midpoint. Now the next thing I want to do is, you'll see as I move, it'll kind of want to snap into the vertical position here. So when it is, just click again. Now this line is defined to be both in the midpoint of this line here, yet vertical at all times, which is exactly what we want, because it's going to be our midline. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click the line tool, and I am going to create a line coming off of this dot here. You'll see sometimes you have to play with it a little bit, but you'll see it'll kind of make a little line coming off of the dot with a little horizontal relation marker underneath it. That's going to tell us that if I click now, it'll make a horizontal relation between this line and the dot. So now if I click again, no matter where I move this line, it's always going to be horizontal, which is exactly what we want. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click the line tool one more time. Click, connect the dots, click, connect the dots. And you'll see it'll, the perimeter will be filled in with this beautiful gray color. Next thing we're going to do is I want to make this symmetrical. All you have to do for that is click on this line here, the right slant, the left slant, and your midline. See, with all 3 of these highlighted now, I'm going to click on symmetric. Again, this might be in your drop-down menu on the relations tree. I'm going to click symmetric. Now, no matter how I move these 2, they'll always be symmetric to one another. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add our circle, which is going to be the hole that the handle will go in. So now I'm going to go ahead and start defining things. So I'm going to go ahead with my dimension tool. I'm going to click on this bottom line. I'm going to make this, we can make it 6.5, because we know the thickness of our walls is 3/4 of an inch, and 2 times 3/4 is 1.5. So I'm going to set the 6.5. I'm going to set this to 5 inches. I will set this distance, and again, with the dimension tool, all you have to do is just click on the dimension tool, click on one of your lines, and then click on the other one, and you'll get the distance between the two. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to also to be 5 inches. And lastly, or almost lastly, it's going to be 2 inches. The distance from the center of our circle to the top is going to be 1.5 inches, sure. Or we can make it 1 inch. And then the size of the circle itself can be 1 inch also. So now I'm going to go ahead and press extrude. And you'll see our perimeter should be highlighted. If it's not, you can go ahead and just click on it. It'll, what's it called? You can select it manually. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this 3/4 of an inch. Press enter again, and we have our part. So now the next thing I'm going to do is rename this real quick. Is lastly our handle. Or, oops, I created an assembly by accident. Don't do that. So now you're going to want to create a part studio. And we're going to want to go to the top plane as usual. Click sketch, click on the top plane, and then select the circle tool. We're going to center it around the origin here. And then using the dimension tool, I'm going to say for this to be 1 inch. Next, I'm going to press extrude. Move my camera to the side, and I'm going to make this 13.5 inches long, and press the check mark. Now we have all our parts finished. Now we just need to assemble it. We're going to be assembling it in this fashion here, with the sides going beneath the floor here. So now I'm going to go back to now we're going to go over to this assembly tab here on the right bottom, and I'm going to press insert. I'm going to take our parts and put them into the assembly space. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, just click again, click once, click again. I need 2 of these, one of the nameplates, 1 handle, and 2 sides. Now that we have all our components, we just need to press the check mark, and it's time to bake this cake. So now I'm going to first fix our base plate. All you have to do is press right click and fix. As you can see, this can't move now. We always, when we're making these, well, what they're called is relations, we always want to make sure what we're fixing it to can't move itself. It's going to make your life a lot easier in the future. You'll see exactly why. All these relations in the assembly are called mates. It's how you define how things are able to move in relation to each other. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the planar mate. So over here on the top. And it's going to ask me for 2 sides or 2 faces of multiple parts. So I'm 2 different parts. You cannot click 2 faces on the same part because it can't fold in on itself, if you guys get what I'm saying. So I'm going to click on this bottom face here of our faceplate, and the side of our bottom plate, and you'll see the 2 faces have now come together and they're now on the same plane. That's what it means by planar. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the primary axis because right now it is clipping into itself, as you can see. Don't worry, it'll be okay. Just click flip and the check mark. So now it's facing the right direction. But one thing to note is even though it's fixed on the Y plane in our case, as you can see, or in the Y axis, as you can see here in the top right, it shows all 3 of your axes. It can still move in the X and the Z. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the planar mate again, click on this face and this face, press solve because the preview is inaccurate, but when we press solve, it'll take your other mates into account. And now it can only move in the Z direction, as you can see. So now I'm going to go back underneath here with the planar mate, Click on these two sides. Now they're flush with each other. Press solve just to make sure that everything's okay. And the check mark. Now I'm going to repeat the same process over here. So again, I'm going to click this face and this face. They're going to snap onto each other however they're clipping in. So I'm going to press flip, check mark, bottom here, check mark, and see what it can still move. It's always a good habit after you do a mate to wiggle it around, see what can go where. So now I'm going to click on these two sides here, press solve, check mark, and we got our plate. We're almost done here. We're making good progress. So now I'm going to click on this face here, go over. I want to make these two sides connect. As you can see, it's clipping into each other. All we have to do, don't fret, just press flip, check mark. And even though this is facing the wrong direction, we'll make it face the right direction. Now we're going to click on this bottom face, and now I want it to be planar with this face here, so now it's going to rotate over to be in the right way. However, again, looks wrong, don't panic. Just press solve, press check mark, it's almost done. See which direction it can move, and it can move in the Y. All we have to do is just click on two faces to make them flush with one another. Here we go. Press solve, check mark, and we're good to go. Now I'm just going to repeat the process on the other side. Click on the broad face and one of the sides here because we want the two sides to be touching. I'm going to flip it, press the check mark. I'm going to go over here on the underside, click on the bottom of the side, click on the bottom of our toolbox, solve, check mark, see where it can go. You can go in the Y. Then I'm going to go ahead and make these two sides flush with one another. Check mark. And we are almost done. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a new mate. All this time we've been using the planar mate. This time we are going to be using the cylindrical mate. I'm going to click on the cylindrical mate. It's over here. I'm going to click on the face, the curved face of our handle. As you can see, is highlighted in orange. So now I'm going to go over here, click on the curved face of the hole. That's essentially saying that the two faces are now going to be radially, or not radially, they're going to share the same center point. So if I click here, now you're seeing they're sharing the same center point. Well, but because they are the same size, that means that the two are touching. Now the next thing I'm going to do is X out of the cylindrical, see where it can still go. It can only go in and out, so I'm going to click on planar, the face of our dowel, and the face of the side of our toolbox. Press solve the last time, check mark, and as you can see, our toolbox is done. All you have to do now is just align it nice and pretty so that you can take a picture of it using print, align it in your box, get it ready for the picture, and you just press download image. If you guys have any questions or you don't feel like I clarified something enough, feel free to shoot me a message, but that'll be all.